news for him and for you and for everybody, because we are going to have peace in Jerusalem.
The Key of David with Gerald Flurry.
Greetings, everyone. I did a TV program on January 27th of this year and talked to you about Libya and Ethiopia and said that those two nations should be watched. And there was really almost no news about Libya at that time, but within a month they were in a civil war. So I continued to tell you that those two nations especially should be watched after I've been talking to you about Egypt for many years. But only recently have we heard very much at all about what's going on in Ethiopia. And in fact, it has been years since I think I've even said anything about it before January the 27th. And now we see there has been a violent explosion from the radical Islamists in Ethiopia. And that is the fulfillment of prophecy, and that's what I've been talking about in the book of Daniel. Now, I also today want to give you an update on Egypt and what is happening there, because this is an ongoing process, and as I've said for some 18 years, there's going to be a radical change in Egyptian politics, and they're going to be allying themselves with Iran. Now, I want to show you what has happened just in 6 weeks after President Mubarak was ousted from rule. And I want you to see the direction that everything is going. It is exactly the way we have said it would, and the way Bible prophecy absolutely tells us it's all going to happen and work out that way. Notice, let me just go back and give you a couple of scriptures to remind you of what I said very recently. Daniel 11 and verse 40. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. So here's the king of the north, a German-led Europe that is going to clash with the king of the south. That's Iran and radical Islam. And the king of the north, or the European power, is going to triumph in this war. But that is not going to happen before the king of the south, or Iran and radical Islam, do a lot of damage to the Middle East and have a lot to do with skyrocketing oil prices and really shaking and perhaps even wrecking economies in the Western world. They are going to push and push. That's what they are said to do here. They just have a foreign policy of push and push and push. And as you know, Iran is the #1 terrorist sponsoring nation in the world. I'm sure most of you already know that. But the king of the north is going to come against Iran like a whirlwind, probably with nuclear bombs, and they're going to destroy Iran. And then at that time, they're going to subdue and all of the nations that were allied with Iran. And that's where Egypt and Libya and Ethiopia come in. But notice verses 42 and 43. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. They're going to be at his steps, or under his control, in his company, and at his beck and call, their translations say. They're going to be subdued by the king of the north simply because they were allied with the king of the south, whom the king of the north just defeated. So why does the king of the north then have to go after these three nations? Well, again, because they have allied themselves with Iran, just as your Bible says. Just as these prophecies are prophesying, and all of this really is coming to pass before our eyes. And it shows that God is alive, and the Bible is his living word. And it's all happening, and we can all see it. And now I want to show you what is happening in Ethiopia. And it's just really started since I mentioned that on January the 27th, because it is prophesied in Daniel, which is a book only for the end time. You can see that in Daniel 12 and verse 4 and verse 9. And it's prophesied there that these nations are going to ally themselves with Iran, and then they're going to have to be subdued by the king of the north when he conquers the king of the south, or Iran. Let me just give you a quick a few little sentences here from this is from Fox News about Ethiopia, and it's March 24, 2011. And here's what it says. Thousands of Christians have been forced to flee their homes in western Ethiopia after Muslim extremists set fire to roughly 50 churches and dozens of Christian homes. The string of attacks comes on the heels of several reports of growing anti-Christian tension and violence around the country, where Muslims make up roughly 1/3 of the total population, but more than 90% of the population in certain areas. 2007 census data shows. Here you have 2/3 of the population are Christian, 1/3 Muslim, but still, I'm telling you that the Muslims are going to be triumphant. They're going to win. And that's because of Daniel 11, verses 42 and 43. They're going to win. Then they talk about all this being against the Constitution of Ethiopia. They're supposed to have freedom, but the Muslims are taking that right away from them in many of the towns. And notice this. The violence against Christians in Ethiopia is alarming because Ethiopian Muslims and Christians used to live together peacefully. Well, what is happening over there? Besides, it's extremely disconcerting that in Ethiopia, where Christians are the majority, they are also the victims of persecution. Jonathan Rayko, ICC's regional manager of Africa and South Asia, told Fox News. So here you have roughly 1/3 of the Muslims that are about to get control of Ethiopia because they are allying themselves with powerful Iran, who has the will to, it seems, do about whatever they want in the Middle East. Now that's what Daniel 11 verse 43 is talking about indirectly. But the end of all this, nevertheless, is going to be magnificent and wonderful, and that's what we need to keep our minds on. But it's going to be difficult getting to that marvelous end that we all should be looking forward to. On January 27th, I told our viewers to watch Libya and Ethiopia, and that they were going to ally themselves with Iran. And of course, they're moving in that direction now, and we're going to see it more in Libya and in Ethiopia. I mean, these are ongoing prophecies that are being fulfilled right now. They're being fulfilled right now. And as I said before, I've been telling you Egypt is going to make a radical turn in politics, in their political structure. And I've been telling you that for nearly 18 years because of what it says in Daniel 11. So we have to keep those prophecies in mind. Now, there really hasn't been anybody that has told you anything like that about Egypt for that many years. For nearly 18 years, I have been telling you that, and now we see it happening before our eyes, and I'm going to show you something here today about that, something that has happened in just 6 weeks since Mr. Mubarak left office that ought to shock every one of us, and is turning exactly the way that we have said on this program that it would happen. Now, I'm telling you, of course, Libya and Ethiopia are going to go the very same way. But did you ever wonder why the intelligence agents almost never see what is happening here, and they almost always are wrong about the outcome? Do you know why? Well, I think they don't really see the oil wealth and the power and the will and the ability of the Iranian leaders. I mean, look at what they have done in Gaza. I mean, they moved into a chaotic situation and took control. They moved into a chaotic situation in Lebanon, and now they've gotten the upper hand. They have control in Lebanon. And they really, most authorities will tell you that Iran has the most control in Iraq of any other nation. They moved into that chaotic situation. But here in Egypt, we see, again, we saw how much rebellion was going on there and all the mass demonstrations. And now, and now we see what is happening, and I'm going to read something to you that ought to be sobering to anybody who understands anything about all of these terrible prophecies. I mean, Iran is an expert at moving in when there is a situation of a breakdown of government authority, and they do it over and over and over and over and stun the world, it seems like, every time, but we never learn anything from it, it seems. There's already reports that they're, before I get to Egypt, there are reports that al-Qaeda fighters are in Libya, and even Hezbollah, and even some soldiers from Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, again, I don't know how accurate this is, but those are reports that are there. But look, there is just utter disorganization in Libya, and all Iran has to do is assemble certain people that are leaders and know how to bring together a disorganization, wildly disorganized people, and bring together the power that they want there, and they're always supporting that with a lot of money and a lot of will, and even some of their own soldiers. They do that, and they're expert at it, and it seems like we never factor that into what's going to happen in these chaotic situations. But we should, or we're never going to get our intelligence reports right. We never will if we don't improve on that. And now we hear that NATO is beginning to at least consider arming the rebels in Libya, or the dissenters, whatever you want to call them, arm them. And what's that going to happen when they do that? Are they just going to? That's going to be like handing it right over to the radical Islamic camp. That's what it amounts to, and that's what is going to happen in Libya. Now, it doesn't have to happen through the rebels. It could happen through Gaddafi himself. If he prevails in all of this, well, he could say, okay, everybody in Europe and the United States, they betrayed me, the way he would look at it, and now I'm going to turn and I'm going to ally myself with Iran.